A great deal of our work to implement effective grading practices centers around changing student perception of grades. Of course, that change is from viewing grades as a reward or punishment to increasing the perception of grades as communication of learning. Because, as we all know, carrots and sticks are so last century, and using external rewards and punishments like grades will get in the way of the in-depth critical thinking, complex reasoning type of learning that students need to do to meet 21st century demands. A key frustration that teachers have when we try to make this shift in student perception is that the kids won't take their role in self-assessment seriously, that they won't really be interested in that communication about their learning. What do we do about that? There's a quote that sums up nicely the approach we need to take. The person who does the work does the learning. Many times we find that teachers are working much harder than the students when it comes to keeping track of a student progress toward the standards. And that's something that really needs to shift. Students need to be working at least as hard as we do to track their progress toward the learning goals. And that's going to mean increasing their involvement in the assessment and feedback process. And in this video, we'll look at a few basic ways to do that. So one of the key issues we have when we seek to involve students more in the self-assessment process is they don't always take that self-assessment process very seriously. And we need to look at a couple of reasons why that might be the case. One possible reason that students don't take their role in the self-assessment process is their goal orientation. And earlier in this module, we looked at the difference between a performance goal and a learning goal, but let's revisit that just quickly here. Performance goals help move students away from the type of motivation that's going to allow them to invest in the self-assessment process. However, we know that that tends to be the type of goal set that they walk in with. They're worried about getting an A rather than a B. What we need to help them do is to set learning goals for themselves and to value the learning goals as much as they value the performance goal. A couple of ways to do that would be, first of all, to teach them about both types of goals and to talk about why learning goals are more useful in a classroom setting. Discuss how they can help them be more motivated and how they can lead them to greater learning. Another strategy building off of the first one is to help the students see the link between setting learning goals and the improvement of their performance goals. Simply by just knowing the difference between performance goals and learning goals isn't going to stop students from wanting the performance, to want the grade. However, we can help them see how working toward a learning goal can improve their performance. So we could have them keep data regarding homework and practice scores, and then we can have them compare their homework and practice scores to their performance on a summative assessment, and then reflect about the connections they see between their practice scores and their summative score or grade. And that will help them see that, gee, when I practice better, I perform better. And that might help them see more of the value in some of the practice activities that we ask them to do and in some of the non-graded activities that we need them to do. Another possible reason that students don't really invest well in the self-assessment process is they simply lack the skills to do so. And so if they can't really see themselves getting better over time, they don't see the point in self-assessment. And so we need to help them develop some basic skills so they can look and know how to see their improvement over time. Many times what's improving are really, abstract concepts or multi-step types of skills, and we can see it because we know what we're looking for, but the students don't see it because they don't see the connections and the little pieces along the way. And so we need to help them with that. A couple of quick strategies for that. The first one is called having students analyze their test results. And what you would do is you give kids a table like this when they take like a forced choice type of assessment. And so as you can see, they fill out the highlighted portion of the table as they're taking the forced choice assessment. So you've got the question number, you have matched the questions to different learning targets, and then as students take the assessment, they just mark whether they're confident in their answer to that question or if they're unsure. The next step comes when students receive their test results back, hopefully pretty quickly. And what they can see there is they go through their test paper that you've marked, and they see if they got the question right or wrong. If they got it right, great. If they got it wrong, they need to analyze it a little further. Was it a simple mistake? Did they not read the question clearly? Did they not do carry the one or something in a math test? And if it was a simple mistake, fine. If they still feel like they don't understand what happened, why did I get that wrong, they need to mark it for future study. Once they're done marking all the questions for the test, they go back and they analyze their results. Which learning target did you do the best with? which learning target might you need to work a little bit more on. And the results of this analysis help students set those learning goals that we need to work on. And then very clearly the teacher can say, okay, if you needed to work on target A, here are some materials for you to work on target A. If you need to work on target B, it's over here. If you need to work on target C, you're over in this group. And so we can differentiate our instruction based on those test results. And that's the type of activity that helps students see the benefit in self-analysis and looking toward progress toward a learning goal. Okay, but what if your assessment isn't a forced choice test? What if your assessment is something where the students had a rubric? Well, then you might try a strategy called yellow and blue make green. As you can see, you've got your typical rubric set up here. And then as the students finish their work, they mark how they think they performed on the rubric in yellow, with yellow highlighter. And if you wanted to take this a step further, you could ask that they provide a reason or two as to why they think their work matches the description in the rubric. Next, as the teacher goes through and marks the work, they mark in a blue highlighter. Okay, and then yellow and blue make green. So areas where the teacher and the student agree are going to show up as green. Areas where we disagree, as in criteria 2 here, are going to show up as a yellow and a blue. And so what you can do if there's not green is require the students to review the feedback that you gave. So you're not writing feedback down that'll get ignored. They have to review that feedback and then provide some explanation about what the differences were. Why did those differences exist? This could be as simple as an exit slip. It doesn't need to be a big hairy assignment. They need to look at it and go, oh, I didn't realize I had to include a counter argument. Oh, I didn't realize that I had to have this type of evidence included. And so they can kind of see why maybe they didn't score as well as they thought they did and give you that explanation. Moving on then, this is just a basic overview of some pretty starter strategies for involving students in self-assessment. Other places to find strategies would of course be some of our district classes. The Designing for Student Engagement class provides all kinds of a variety of strategies to help students really take on that role in self-assessment. Also, the Learning by Doing course goes into some depth here because this is a key part of the formative assessment process. You could certainly always go see your instructional support coach because they will have a variety of ideas for you. Additionally, you might do a book study. There is an author, Larry Filazzo, who writes a blog. He's also written a book, Helping Students Motivate Themselves. Again, lots of ideas here to help students really engage in that self-assessment process to see how they're doing with their learning and to make those improvements. So these are just a few ideas about where you can go for some other ideas. So, just to sum up, back to Dan Pink again, we know that there are 3 factors that lead to better performance and personal satisfaction. In other words, intrinsic motivation, the type of motivation we need to have students have so that they can tackle the increased learning expectations that have been set for them. Those, of course, are autonomy, mastery, and purpose. When many of you reflected on Pink's work in Module 1, you noted that autonomy can be really difficult to do. And you're exactly right. We can provide students some choice. Of course we can, but we can't always give them a choice on what they're going to learn. Sometimes they just need to learn the stuff. Likewise, purpose can be tough. Not every kid is going to buy into, the meaningfulness of a certain type of learning. So really what we're left with is mastery. Mastery is one of those things that we can control. We can really help students see that they're getting better with progress toward a certain skill or toward a certain concept. And even if they're not all that bought into how important the concept or skill is, just the mere fact that they're getting better will help increase their intrinsic motivation. So really finding ways to set those clear learning targets and help kids see their progress toward those targets is one of the strongest strategies we could use to increase their intrinsic motivation and replace the need for grades as reward and punishment.